Just this one.
All right. All right, y'all. So today we got a tight-knit group with this. So I'm pretty sure all of us can follow along. Shouldn't be too hard. Any confusion at all, anytime today, just pop up a question in the chat or just raise your hand, anything like that. So as you guys already know, today we're gonna be making a little, hold up, let me.
Can you close this one?
Yeah.
Need to look at this one.
Gotcha. Yeah, we will be making our own meme rating website where we'll be able to give the user an opportunity to upload their memes and to be able to actually give each meme a rating, right? And we're going to be doing all this through HTML and JavaScript with a little CSS sprinkled on the top. But it's important to know, we're going to give you guys the skeleton template for all that. And I will show you all how to do that soon. But for now, before we get started, I would like to introduce myself and then Max as well. So my name's Ethan. I'm a Google developer. You feel me? Certified, working as a software engineer. Nah. So I'm a tech lead with the Google Developer Student Club. And really, this is my first year as a tech lead. I've enjoyed it a lot. We've done a lot of workshops. I've had a great time creating a lot of things, teaching people new things, and especially making this project. Outside of computer science and all that, love to volunteer. I'm actually a committee member with VUCF, Volunteer UCF. So if you guys would like to pop out to one of our events later this month, just go on Nice Connect and search up a bowl-a-thon, and you will be able to find an event that promotes awareness for those who have autism and other special abilities. So I just want to give a shout out to VUCF real quick. But that's a little bit about me. And Max, you want to introduce yourself?
All right, so I'm Max. I'm also first year here in the GDSC and also in UCF. Mostly just find me doing like competitive programming and all of that good stuff, really.
Sweet.
So I can just go over this real quick. So we highly recommend everybody here uses VS Code today. That's what we're going to use to show how to code. The primary reason, I guess, is to make sure there's no errors in case like one of the IDEs or code editors of yours doesn't work, or also because we're going to use live server extension that will allow us basically to have automatic changes when we save the files into a browser. So like as soon as I type something new, save the file, we'll automatically see that reflect on the website. So just highly recommend everybody uses that. We'll show real quick how to get live server extension because that's a little bit not a website. You got to actually have VS Code installed first before.
For sure.
We'll give time for it to be on.
And for those in the chat,
There'll be time to
do we have anyone in the chat following along with VS Code open already and have live server installed? Because nice. Good to hear. We can go through the steps real quick once we actually get to the real content. But moving forward, nice. Yeah, moving forward, before we actually dive into the low-level stuff, I'm gonna give you guys a high-level overview of Google Firebase today. So, right, first question is what is Google Firebase, right? And more specifically, what is Firebase real-time database? So basically, Google Firebase is a real-time platform which allows you to upload your apps and be able to connect multiple different devices from Android, iOS, to even web pages to a single database to collect information, analytics, and so forth, right? And a good example of how you guys see Firebase and real-time databases in real life is through video games, right? So like getting a high score in a game in a matter of milliseconds, that high score can be transferred to a database, and anyone else who's connected to that database will see that you've beaten their own high score. And that's what real time really means. And really, Firebase is super helpful because it's easy to develop super large apps that have like millions of users, as well as smaller apps used with 10 users. So it's super accessible for smaller developers, right? And also, there's another database called Cloud Firestore. Now, this is almost the exact same thing as the real-time database. However, with Firestore, it's a little bit more complex to use, but overall, it's a better system to use when you want to scale your project. So pretty much sum it up with Firestore. If you're handling millions of users and plan on creating an app that just goes crazy, then Firestore is the way to go. But if you're planning on having less than about like 200,000, which was like the statistic, then real-time database will definitely get that job done for you, right? So Firestore, we will see that later, but we will not be working directly with it.
I just want to add too that Firestore has a different billing system than real-time database. So I believe you should be very careful with Firestore because Firestore actually charges you for every read, write, and I believe download. So it could get crazy if there's a lot of data being downloaded or written and just written all the time. So they have different billing systems. So you should also take that into account. I think primarily, typically, if you want to just go with something that's cheaper or less expensive, I think real-time database would be the best option.
For sure, for sure. And with that said, I wanna start at the very basics of Google Firebase, right? So we're gonna start from ground level one, right? What is data? So with data, that can be anything from strings, hello world, Max's Bay, bumfuzzle. That could be URLs, numbers, booleans, arrays, and so forth, right? Now, another form of data, which is what is usually transferred between databases, is a lot more efficient to use and compact, and that's a data object, right? And for those who haven't taken an object-oriented programming class, just to sum this up real quick and how it works, a quick example is we can create sort of like a teacher object, and inside this teacher object, we're capable of holding a variety of different variables from strings, integers, booleans, etc. Right? And we're able to access this object through a dot operator, and we can also access arrays inside objects, and we can even go as far as accessing more objects inside objects, and it kind of create a hierarchy. And it can get more complex from there, but for now, I'm gonna transfer over to JavaScript, which is what we'll be using today. And one thing to note is that with the JavaScript, that the data we're going to be transferring isn't specifically variables like floats, integers, booleans, strings, whatever. Because in JavaScript, if you don't already know, that we use actually, in today's project, we're going to use one of two type of variables, const and let, right? With const, you can see in this little example that with the name variable and all these other variables are initialized, you can just give it a string, integer, float, whatever, and const will accept that as a data type, right? But the difference between the variable types const and let is that with the variable let, you're capable of reassigning values and just capable of reassigning values, and it's a lot more flexible, whereas const stays static straight throughout your program, right? But another topic that we're gonna have to cover is JSON, right? Now, 99% of the time, when you're working with data, transferring data, and all of that, most likely the word JSON is going to pop up in some way, shape, form, or structure, right? And today, in Google Firebase, when we actually access our own database, it's going to be in a JSON-like structure, right? And if you aren't already familiar with JSON, it's lightweight, super easy to read and write for both us as people and the computer. And it integrates easily with programming languages from JavaScript, C#, C++, and you name it, right? And with JSON so with JSON, I'm gonna give a quick overview of what it looks like, give you guys a look at what the structure is, so that once we actually hop into Firebase, everything will make more sense, right? So first of all, we have our simple JSON file format surrounded by two brackets, which kind of like create our own object. And inside this object, we're gonna have what's called a key, right? A key followed by some data value, some data variable. And it's important to note that with the key, it will always be surrounded by double quotation marks. And it's going to be followed by a colon and an integer, right? So if you want to add multiple keys inside a JSON file, it works like an array in pretty much most programming languages, right? Where if you want to add another key, all you have to do is separate both keys with a comma, just like that, right? So you can have an integer, string, whatever, right? So to give a quick example.
What's up?
I just wanted to know the difference between JS and JSON.
JS is actually a programming language. JavaScript. JSON is a way to actually kind of like organize data. It's almost this idea that you have almost like these squigglies that hold a bunch of data inside of it, and it can have multiple keys with fields, but then a field can also have its own, you call it a group of fields inside of it. So JSON is almost like a way to organize data, and JavaScript is just a programming language. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'll see also how when we access our database, that pretty much with JSON, we'll be able to reference like these keys. And it's just overall a lot lighter and a lot easier to access from the programming language.
Yeah, and to add a little bit, real-time database is the one that has a JSON-like structure. So that's the only time we basically see this. The Firestore, the one we talked about, actually has the idea. It's like a structured data. So basically, it's the idea of collections, and inside these collections is like a bunch of documents, and it keeps going like collections, documents. And if you want to have something more structured, then you probably want to go with Firestore. But the whole idea of the real-time database too is that it has no structure. You kind of create your own. So that's why we just use JSON, and it makes things simpler.
Yeah. And it's just, like I said before, a lot more versatile with multiple programming languages. And that's how we can get like websites, iOS apps, Android, all connecting to one database, right? And with that, what I was saying before was with JSON, to give a more specific example, here we have our key, which we call name, followed by a colon, and my name, Ethan. We got my age, an integer, and in this JSON file, I also added an array to throw in there. And on top of all this, it's super easy to add objects as well, where I can add an education object and add in like different keys and variables. You know that last part, all right? That was anyway, with different keys and variables, and we can access, let's say the school in JSON by using a / operator, right? So this, what you see right here, is the combination between both the JSON and JavaScript, right? So on the right side, we have, we declare our variable ref1, which accesses our database, which is kind of like our object .ref. And if we want to be able to access a key inside a key, as we did with like that education object, which I mentioned before, then we would just use multiple slashes to be able to go deeper inside our hierarchy, right? So just a nod of heads to make sure that like everything makes sense. Nod of heads, things are cool. We good? Nice. So, oh yeah, and one question by Juan, real quick. So JSON is like an object. So yeah, the JSON is pretty much exactly like an object, right? It's specifically for holding data, right? And accessing it just like this, which you'll see in our database once we get over there. But does that answer your question? All right, nice. So moving on. So next, I'm gonna hop into a few examples of what's possible through Google Firebase. And the first example is actually a web app called Bad at Names, right? So this is kind of like a mini Quizlet with flashcards, and you're capable of uploading a URL of a picture of someone, okay, and labeling that with a name and kind of testing yourself to see whether or not you can recognize like if you can remember the name, right? So to be able to, let me pop up that website real quick.
You can actually do this if you hold it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I feel nice. All right, so with bad at names, another thing to note about Google Firebase is that you're able to create an authentication aspect to your apps, right? So like in this example, right? Super basic, like HTML format. If I sign in, I can sign in just with my own Google account, and all the data inside this account will be associated with, all the data that I put inside this website will be associated with my account, right? So let's have a quick quiz. All right, so quick question. Can we know, I need a real answer of who this is. All right, someone from the chat or in person? We got any guesses? Any guesses?
So did you have the check, guess?
Hey, wrong answer. That's Usher, yo. That's Usher. Come on. So pretty much how this works is I can search up any. So let's say I just wanted to search up, some sort of Simpsons meme, right? I can just copy and paste a URL into this bad at names website, give it a name, Homer, submit, and you can see here that the image pops up, everything's connected, and the database is there. So with that said, that's one example. Hopefully Jason Derulo don't come and find me. But Max, if you want to go show your other example real quick of something you created.
This is something that I did during summer with a group. We had 1 week to make a project, and taking advantage of the aspect of real time, we decided to make this little chat that you can also send messages to. So you can see that it's a global chat. You can talk to everybody. You can just spam like hello. And as you can see, the message is actually here on like basically ordered by dates or like whenever it was submitted first. You also have the ability to directly message someone. So the way that we design the database is that every person has a copy of the chat they have with someone else. And if Ethan is to talk with Alana, press enter, you can see that a chat is created, and then he can send messages directly to her, like hello or hi. So yeah, this is just one of the things you can do with real-time database. It doesn't have to be something like a real-time chat, or it could be as simple as just updating a little leaderboard or evaluating the website. It doesn't really have to govern everything about it. So that's just one of the examples that you could make and get really in depth with it.
For sure. So next thing is next. We're going to try it out ourselves of what we're actually going to be creating today. So going to this website, what we will be making, our final product will look like this, where we have, we have our basic web page, a title, meme duel, bringing you joy one meme at a time. And we have two options to choose between left and right meme. This is one card, this is another card. And by clicking anywhere on it, you can see that the rating goes up, turns green. And to be able to refresh the memes and get two different images like that, then it works. And all of this is done by accessing multiple URL strings from our database and throwing it into our HTML document.
FYI, since we do have so many little images right now, that's why it looked like it didn't change it. It just ends up randomly selecting the same one. There's like less than 15 probably, so
yeah,
there's a high chance of it getting, not high, but pretty good chance of getting the same.
For sure. And like you guys saw on the Bad Names website, like you're also able to upload, another image and to be able to, keep adding on to the memes. So with that out of the way, Anna, question?
Track if you rated a meme before? Like, is there a login aspect?
No, there's actually no login aspect. The idea is that you just show two memes and you choose the best one, and then as it just goes along this end.
Yeah.
That's something that we highly recommend after this workshop you guys work on. It's very possible. It does require not real-time database, but another feature of Firebase called authentication.
Yep. And for those who are interested in creating or being part of the project committees with the Google Developer Student Club, this project is definitely open for those who want to continue building on it and making it better. But for now, let's start at square one and let's download these files. So you already posted these in the Discord yet? Or
I'll send it in the Zoom chat real quick.
for sure, for sure. So
So the idea of having these files downloading is because like, as nice as it is to have a website, start from scratch and have a nice, pretty website, it would take hours to really go through every single aspect of HTML and CSS, when primarily we want to focus on just the JavaScript. So we're giving you guys a template and allowing everybody to just really focus on JavaScript today.
yep. So let me check. There
Let
we
me
go.
know if when everybody, or if anybody still needs the link before we start anything. Sorry? I should say.
For sure.
Yes.
Alright, it's in the general channel right now.
All right. So for those of you part of the Discord, just now get to the general channel and you will find the
It's the
Google.
wrong link. I need to. Oh no, okay. Let me edit that, sorry.
Is it wrong?
Is it?
I did it.
What does it say?
Oh, wait, I'm missing an L, okay. It should be correct now.
Okay, it should have two
All right.
folders, a starting folder and a final folder. So if you can download both, but we're gonna start with the starting code, of course. The final code is just what you should have at the end of this workshop.
Yep.
Did
So-
you have ad blocks, turn them off to access the site?
And by the way, with our limited time, I will be real with y'all. Staying caught up with us line by line in the code will get challenging time to time. So that's why we also added that key. So to be able to navigate between the key and the code, you can see where you went wrong or anything like that. But like for today, definitely like to listen to our explanations of how things work is what I think is the best thing you can grab. So with that said, I'm gonna give anyone else a minute who wants to download the files and the.
Yeah, I messed up.
All right.
I'm double checking.
So the link in the Discord, I hope no one is struggling too much because it was wrong.
If you want to
so-
open up the slide again so I can see it out there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, is that first one?
Yeah.
But it should be right.
The big one, the link at the bottom is just like, I guess it doesn't have to be there, but just to actually.
We'll come back
get
to
the
that later.
functions. All right, we'll explain, because we're gonna go over the file and what exactly. Did it work?
Yep, just
Yep. Everybody set up?
there we
Everybody
go.
has not set up?
And for those of you on the Zoom, are you guys having any trouble with accessing the drive and setting up?
Yeah, all those files.
Nice, nice.
We'll really just focus on a little bit of the initialize in the beginning, just make sure you can connect to the database, and then just mostly the script.js.
Yep. All right, so the very next step of what we're going to do is I'm just going to open up this file for us in Visual Studio Code. So I already downloaded it and extracted this to my desktop. So I'm just going to open the folder in my desktop, which is this starting template. And it will have our skeleton code laid out for us. Yes, I trust Max, my life. And once you open it up in VS Code, you will be brought to this page. So in our HTML document, all this, I'm actually going to open through live server, right? And if you don't already know what live server is, you can always go to extensions and literally search up live server in here and install it. Super easy, super simple. But for now, going back to here, I'm going to open up the web page with live server, because what it does is when you save your file, it'll automatically update your web page, right? So now that our web page is open, let me take that down.
To open the live server, you should click in the file or on the file.
Yeah, or in the bottom right, so we should say go live.
Yep. And then on our webpage, if we click on inspect element,
If anybody needs help too, just raise your hand on that.
for sure, for sure. And if y'all need help in the Zoom chat, again, pop your questions in there. And yeah, so right now, we can inspect the elements, each element on this webpage. And it's very important to note that I'm actually going to go back to VS Code so it's easier to read. That with some of these elements, there's a specific ID associated with it, right? So here, scrolling down, we have labeled with a comment meme1, and we have a specific ID called meme1 ID card, which we will be able to reference in our JavaScript. Here we go. What was that, Hannah? Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's fix that. I can just control plus, right? There we go.
Oh, do you want me to run it?
All right, so yeah, going through here, we have our IDs, and we also have a few buttons as well. Our next meme button that refreshes the memes, and also we have an input to be able to input our own URL to be able to submit to our database and so forth. So
Does anyone need help still? Or you guys need help? Or?
gonna do a quick check. Looking at the HTML, is anyone having any trouble like understanding it, knowing where like our IDs are and anything like that? We will have, all right, good question, good question. So script is, this is how you access JavaScript within HTML, right? So in reality, over here on the left side of the screen, where you see like all these others, you know, documents, these other scripts, all this, the JavaScript isn't necessary, right? You're capable of typing all your JavaScript between the two tags of script, right? And also here, I will dive more in depth of why this is important a little later on once I finally pull up Google Firebase. But this is pretty much an import in the libraries, which I'll cover again later on. But for now, I'd like to know, did that answer your question, Juan? All right, nice, good to hear. So, inside the classroom, are you guys ready to hop into Google Firebase? You guys familiarizing yourself with the code base already? I got you.
Are you two good?
You want to?
Yeah.
All right, for sure. All right, so we will now move on to the very next part, which is going to access Google Firebase, right? So super easy to do. Literally just type in Google Firebase inside Google, right? You can click on a link. I skipped past the ad, and you should come back to a page like this, super easy to get to. And once you click on get started, most likely you'll be prompted to be able to have to log in with a Google account, so then it can associate all the databases you create with your account, right? But since I already logged in before, as soon as I click get started, it already take me over to our project. So this is the first page you should see once you log in, and you'll be given an option to add a new project. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So, and yes, the Firebase is free. To answer your question. Yep. It's free, and like Max was saying before, depending on how big your app gets, that's when Google will actually start charging you, when your app goes big and successful. But for now, since we're kind of creating, you know, a startup project, we don't really have to worry about any of that. But to make our project name, I'm just going to call this the meme website. Click on continue. And the next step, you'll be prompted with Google Analytics, but like we can enable this, but like I said before, this is just a starter project. We can build upon it later. So this isn't really necessary for now. We're gonna keep things simple and we're gonna create our project.
While it creates, is everybody able to get to this page or needs help to get to this page? All good? All right.
Yep, and that's going to take a moment to load and create a new project. Here we go. In the next step. So yeah, once you create your new project, you'll see your website title, or actually your app title in the name, right? I just called it website because we're making a website, but that can be an iOS app, Samsung app, whatever, right? And from here, from the start page, on the left side is what you call the Google console. And this is where you'll be able to access your databases, right? And over here, inside build, once you expand that, you'll see a Firestore database, which we were talking about before. Again, it's just a little bit more improved from the real time, a little bit more complex, but just go straight to real-time database. And our first step is gonna be to create. And to create this, what we're gonna do is literally select the location closest to us, to where our server will be located, the one we will be storing our database in. We're gonna click on next. And this, setting up the database, you'll be presented with two options, locked mode or test mode. What I recommend doing for now is putting it in test mode, because this will actually allow us to read and write to this database, okay? So if it's on locked mode, we wouldn't be able to do this, upload our memes, ratings, and etc., right? So we're gonna keep this in test mode to keep that possible. And here we are. This is where all of our data will be stored. And this is where our JSON structure kind of like starts to grow, right? Once we finally start adding data, right? But now the next question to answer is, how do we actually connect Visual Studio Code to Firebase, right? To this specific database. And to do that, what we're gonna do is, in the top left of the console, you will see next to project overview, there's a little gear. You can click on this gear, go to project settings, and this will take you to all the project settings, to where we can change our project name and be able to view a lot of other options and change up a lot of other things. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that we have no apps in our project just yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an app, right? And this last icon over here represents a web page, which uses JavaScript, and that's what we're gonna click. So to create our first app, we're gonna have to give this app a nickname, right? I'm gonna call this the Meme Duel. And then with Firebase Hosting, again, we're gonna keep this project super simple for now. We aren't gonna really get into this, but it can definitely be enabled later for those of you who wanna build onto this project and be able to host it online.
Yeah, so the idea of Firebase hosting is that you can actually deploy it, and Firebase will actually host it for free for you, But then the thing is that, as you saw with the other links, they have a little extension. Instead of saying like myapp.com, it's gonna be myapp.web.app. So yeah, that's basically the idea.
Yep. And then from there, and actually to build on to what Max was saying, to deploy a Firebase app, super easy to do some research, super easy to go on YouTube and all that. Definitely recommend doing that, because that is a great learning experience. But for now, to go on to our next step, after we create our app nickname, we actually get presented with this next part, right? So here, let me move this out the way. So over here, we're presented with our Firebase configuration, right? We're presented with code that we're going to copy and paste inside our project. But we are not going to be, there's actually there's different ways you're able to initialize Firebase and your specific database to your project, right? But we are going to be using actually, we will come back to this later. We do not have to copy this for now because there's another area where we can access all of this, right? So for now, we're just going to continue to console. And we'll see that down here inside our project settings, scrolling down, we can see that we have, the setup and configuration once again, right? So this is what we're going to be copy and pasting into Visual Studio Code to create that connection between our database and our local computer. And what we're going to do is since we are using an earlier version of JavaScript, version 8.3.1, we are actually not going to copy and paste the first thing it gives us, because this actually utilizes JavaScript in version 9, right?
Firebase version 9.
Or Firebase version 9, my fault. And as you can see in here. So what we are actually going to do is we're going to go to config, which gives us a basic configuration of our app. You can see that our database URL is here and a lot of other things we were able to access, right? So I'm gonna copy and paste this entire block of code and throw it inside Visual Studio Code. And Max and I actually made a nice snug place for you to copy and paste your config, right? And if you go to initialize.js, you can just replace the config that's there with your own, right? And below here, usually the steps starting from scratch after copy and pasting your config would be to initialize Firebase and also to import your libraries as well. And with these libraries are super important to be able to actually access the database. And you can find all of these and going back, you can find all these online, right? So a quick link that I have in the chat and which I can also send to the Zoom.
I believe it should be in the code too. If you go check the code.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so check the code real quick.
I got you.
So yeah, right at the top of the script, there's like this little comment right here that says check for available library that you need. This thing means that although we are connected to the Firebase exactly, it doesn't know what Firebase is. Like there is no Firebase function or object in JavaScript. So this is just importing all the code that we need specifically for the Firebase app and specifically the real-time database. So that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you guys didn't really hear what Max was saying, pretty much this link will take you over to where you, let me show you guys, to where you're able to go through the different libraries. And scrolling down, you see that there's version 9 libraries, but what we're using is version 8. And by going through here, you can go narrow down what you're trying to use, right? So let's say we're trying to have a library to use real-time database. Right here, it has that option to copy and paste this script and paste it inside our code to be able to actually use all of that, right? So let me do a quick checkup on everyone to see if that makes sense. If there's any questions, any confusion anywhere, that goes inside the Zoom and out.
Does everybody have your config variable pasted into the code? Yep.
Sweet. All right, good to hear, Juan, good to hear. All right, so the next step, once all that is initialized, so at this point in time, our code, our Visual Studio is connected into our Firebase, right? Into our database. Now, the next thing we have to do is to actually throw data inside our database. So first of all, we're going to be doing all of our JavaScript to be able to accomplish that task in the script, literally called script.js. which is already attached to our HTML and accessed. And you'll see here that Max and I have already listed out all the elements and all the references that we're going to be using. So we have our meme1 card, the image, the rating, and all the other data and so forth. And we also have our submit button with the meme URL, which is pretty much the text box where you're able to type in your string. And we have the submit button, right? So first things first is we're going to create a button to be able to actually display whatever string that appears that the user types in inside our website, right? So to be able to do that, we are first going to start off with creating an event for when our submit button is created, right? So to be able to do that in JavaScript, you're going to do first reference the submit button, right? And we're going to use that dot operator, and we're going to do submit button dot add event listener, right? Which pretty much it listens to any event that occurs, right? And we have to specify what event we want or what event we want to specifically listen to, right? So that's where we're going to just type in click for the event we want, and followed by our function handler, right? So what this does here, so what this does here, function E, right, this is what kind of like function E keeps all the data of the event listener, and it's not really important for this specific function, but it will become more important later on. So what I'm gonna do, right, to do a quick demonstration of what function E does, right, is I'm gonna do a quick console.log E, right? So then we're able to go inside our website and we can see exactly what that prompts us. So going back to our meme rating website, going to our console, we'll see that if we click on upload, an event will happen. And that letter E pretty much holds on to all of this data. And a lot of this data is just for very specific things, something that we won't be using. But one thing that you will be able to access is, let's see here. So there's something called a control key, right? And it says false. So that pretty much holds on to, like, it detects whether or not the user is holding the control key while the button is pressed, right? So now that I held the control key and pressed the button again, you'll see that it appeared true, right? And that's going back to our code. That's basically what function E does. And next, what we're gonna want to do is we want to be able to grab this string whenever the submit button is pressed, and I want to console.log that to actually get the string. So to be able to get the value of whatever string the user inputted, we're actually going to reference the meme URL, meme_URL dot val. Right. So going back to our website, running this again, let's say I type in IMAX, upload. Let me, oh, my fault. Let me see what value, my fault. I did not val. All right. So going back again, IMAX, click upload. There we go. You see that our string was sent to the console. But what we really want right now is sending our string to our actual database. So to be able to do that, right? And before I even get to the database, to make things more organized, let's just let's reset our string value to just nothing. So then whenever the user presses enter, whatever string is in there will disappear. Right? I spelled disappear wrong. All right. Wait. Let me excuse me for that. All right. And then you see that with one, as soon as I press the submit button, that whole string disappeared. So now to actually send everything to our database, I have to reference a specific, so I have to reference what we initialized earlier, right? So I'm gonna create an object, which is pretty much database. I'm gonna call it database and reference Firebase dot database. Parentheses at the end, and then save that, right? So now this object literally holds our database and allows us to be able to send these strings over to it, right? So I'm actually going to shorten this to DB to make things easier to type. And what we're gonna do is we want to push this string to this base. So we're gonna do DB dot ref, right? And then followed by parentheses. And we want to reference the exact location we want to input this string. So in JSON, like we mentioned before, we usually use the slash, right, to be able to start creating a hierarchy and keep things organized. So I'm gonna do slash memes slash, and then follow that with dot push. All right. And I'm actually going to delete this console.log to keep things cleaner. So with dot push said, now we want to push. Let me fix this. There you go. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to access it. We're going to actually create a key to be able to throw inside our database, right? So we're going to call our key URL followed by a colon, or actually, excuse me. Yeah, URL followed by a colon, and then what we referenced before, which was the meme URL dot value. And let me see what's up with this.
Oh, and the idea with what is memes. So basically we have a reference to the database. When we say .ref memes, we're referencing something inside of the database, so another part of the database. And although we have never created memes, our database should be completely empty, I think, for the most part. If Firebase sees that there's nothing there, when we push data into it, it would automatically create a section called memes there. So, yep. You could actually specify this your own. So you will see soon that when we push things, it will be inside of a memes. Inside of this memes, you kind of think like a folder. Inside of this memes folder will be our all this data that we're actually sending right now. But Firebase will create an automatic ID for that. So it kind of packages things together, creates a unique ID since we want every meme to be different, and sends it over to this new area called memes. So, yeah.
Yep. And alongside with the URL, we also want to store a rating along with it. So I'm going to follow the JSON syntax where we separate this with a comma, and I'm gonna just throw in the number 0. And with that saved, now we should have our first push to our database. So let's say we can actually push any string. It doesn't necessarily have to be a URL. So I'm just gonna say this will appear.
This will not push.
Or this.
No, because you misspelled database.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my fault. That base.
That base.
Save that. Yeah, so if there's any errors with your project, it will appear in the console. So now let's type in, I'll see you in the DB. Upload that. And now if we go over to Google Firebase, let me exit out of all these extra tabs. I don't even, hold on. Let me see where my for Google Firebase went. So just to log back in real quick.
Does anyone have any questions so far? Anything? Everybody's good with the code? Cool.
And questions along in the meme. I mean, I said the meme, the Zoom, the Zoom. Go ahead, ask away. I'm gonna go back to my database and you'll see that we now have our memes folder, and inside our memes folder, we have what we pushed, which is our rating and our URL, right? And the string I sent, which was, I'll see you in the DB. Now, this is something, this URL is what we will be able to access and throw into HTML and actually make these images appear. But for now, what you can do is delete this data manually. Let me just, by just clicking on the X, click on delete, and that is no more.
Oh, and the reason why memes disappeared too is because Firebase sees that it has no data inside of it, it automatically cleans everything out. So it's still one thing to keep in mind. If you have anything that like has no data inside, it will automatically get cleaned and deleted.
Yep. So with our submit button working and our URL capable of going over to Firebase, I'm now gonna ask if that makes sense to everyone. If people understand like the process we did, referencing Firebase and being able to use kind of this JSON-like structure to be able to push inside it. So any confusion inside the Zoom?
Is this recorded?
Yes, it's hopefully recorded.
Yeah.
Yes, it says yo, I'm checking. It will be recorded, and yes, it's recording. It'll be uploaded also to the YouTube. We have a YouTube UCF Google Developer Student Club.
Okay.
Think it's linked in the link tree. If you click on the link tree that we have, there should be like a link to the YouTube. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
yep. All right.
Thank you.
for sure.
No
Yeah,
problem.
no problem. So now to move on to the next part of this website, I'm actually gonna hand this over to Max, and he'll guide us over to connecting our data over to HTML and keeping track of our ratings.
All right. So we were able to actually submit stuff. I'll keep so just real quick, I think just for the sake of like sanity checks and everything, we always want to make sure that the user's not submitting stuff that they're not supposed to, or is randomly spamming things. So to prevent yourself from actually having a lot of empty data there, we can actually just really quick say that right here, we're going to say only submit if it's not empty, if the user has actually typed something into our website. So to do that, we say if the meme URL, the value is equal to blank, then we can like push an alert. Else we'll actually just run all this code right here. And here and here. Cool. So otherwise we can just say real quick, just a simple alert. This is an alert that the browser does by itself. So it's not like a really pretty message. So yeah. So basically we just put an alert saying that he forgot to type the URL, otherwise it will submit. Now there are various problems with this, so I highly recommend improving this after the workshop. That the user could actually just send like any string, it wouldn't really check for specifically a valid URL. So for example, at least now when I click upload, it will actually prevent me from actually submitting anything and say that I forgot to put it. That's cool. Right, is everybody good up to that point with the code and everything? Because now we're actually going to start to reading the data and access and processing like the clicks and incrementing the rating for each meme. It'll get a little long, but hopefully we can all follow along. So the idea now is that when we refresh, so when we click refresh memes right here, when we load our web page, it will actually automatically display to us two random memes. Hopefully they are not the same. So we'll get into that. So just like we did with the submit button, we want to say that when we click the next, so we call it next meme button, but it's basically the refresh memes button. When we click that, so we're going to add an event listener. So on click. Another way that you can write functions too is by JavaScript allows you to just put a parameter. So the parameters are going to be in parentheses. If you have blanks, just keep it on. I'll put E because it will actually pass to us the event of what happened. And you can also do a little equal arrow sign with the squiggly brackets, I guess. And it will actually allow you to have a function. So you don't always have to type function, use at your own preference, really. So what we'll say in this function is, I'm gonna outsource it to a separate function. So I'm gonna say change memes. So what we will do is that we want to change memes or refresh the memes every time we click the refresh. But we also want to refresh the memes every time we open our web page. Because right now it would kind of suck for the user to open the web page and see that there's nothing, but they got to automatically manually go and click it. So the idea is that when this script is ran, it will not only have all these functions ready for on events, it will also run the change memes function once. So yeah, it will actually just make sure that we see memes right at the beginning. Now I'll put this above it so that there's no problem in asking where is the memes if we put it below it. So I'm gonna call this, so another way that you can create functions by creating a constant for them. So the constant variable, you give it the function name, so change memes. You set it equal, in parentheses, the parameters. It can either be blank or specify the specific parameters. We're gonna leave it blank because it will automatically change memes. It knows exactly the elements we have. And then the equals with the arrow and open the squiggly brackets. Making sure I'm not missing this. So the idea is that now that we call this function, we want to get the data from all the memes that we have and randomly choose 2 of them. So just like we did to push data, we can actually say db.ref. We want to reference the memes section of our memes, or in our database, really. We can actually get all the data inside of it. It'll be like a snapshot at that moment of what the data is. And the problem with this is that it will return a promise to us. So in JavaScript, the promise is basically the language saying, all right, I'll do this real quick, but I'll let you know when it's done, or like I promise I'll get it. However, we really want to like execute code right after, so we can say .then. So whenever the promise is actually completed and fulfilled, we can actually execute code. Now this code will also return, or this promise will also return something like we'll just call it snapshot. It will pass back to us a variable that holds all the snapshot of the reference that we just made, so all the memes, but it's not really in the previous fraction, the previous way, basically. So to really get all the data and make sure it looks nice, we're gonna say let memes data equals to snapshot dot val. Or it's actually a function, so dot val. And real quick, we can check it out to see exactly what we have by just printing out our meme data. And yeah, just give it a sec, and then I'm gonna just real quick just show what happens. So when we refresh the page, oh, this actually did not print. Oh, we don't actually have any memes. So what I'm gonna just quickly go and search up any random memes. So also like memes on the web, and upload like 2 or 3 memes just to make sure that we have enough to show the demonstration. So 1, really quick, you can see that our upload works. 2, really quick. I recommend you guys also upload your own memes as go, just to make sure things are working. And then 3, this is the last meme we'll upload for now. Right. Oh, right here. All right, you want to click refresh. You can see that in the console, it prints all of the data that we got from other memes. And you see we have the unique IDs, and inside of each unique ID, it has its own rating and URL, so to the image. And that's what we're gonna use now to find the random meme to use for both the left and the right. Yeah, any questions so far? Anything?
In Zoom chat, I'm also here to answer some questions. So if there's anything you'd like to know, just pop it down in the chat. Even if it's a past question about Firebase or any of the steps setting up, all the way up to now, go ahead and ask away.
All right, so the idea now is that we want to get like a random meme for it to show. We don't really want to set specifically get the first meme always, because it's going to always be the same meme. So Firebase doesn't really have a nice way to get things randomly. So we kind of have to improvise, and it's not the best efficient way, but it's the easiest for now, at least to keep it simple. So the idea is that we're gonna have an array of all the possible meme IDs. So if you saw in our database, there's each meme has its own unique ID that has data inside of it. So we're gonna get an array of all these keys so that we can randomly select one later. So we're gonna say let memes keys equals to object dot keys, and then we're gonna pass the memes data. So if you're not sure what object is, I know VS Code kind of lets you cheat. You kind of not cheat, but easily understand things. If you hover over some functions that are like in the language, it will show you their functionalities and a description of what they do. Objects just allow us to call different things that allow basically functions on JavaScript objects. And key specifically will go through the data that we have and extract a little bit down, and they'll extract every single key string for every key value pair. So think of it, the meme ID is the key that we're extracting from and putting in a string, in an array of strings. One snapshot is basically all the data present in the database at that moment in time when we run the code. So we can call it anything you want, but I call it snapshot. So because that's kind of what it returns. Yep. All right. So then the idea now is that because we have now an array of the keys, we can actually select a random index for what the meme we want to get. So we're gonna say to keep it simple with the length, I'm gonna just say let length equals to memes keys.length. We'll use length soon, so when we randomly select an index, and then right below we're gonna say meme. I'll just put comments, it's a little bit easier. Meme1 selection. We can actually space out the code and make it better. Meme2 selection, and then other stuff. This is kind of like the skeleton of what we're gonna do. So with meme1, we first want to get a random key, so we're gonna say let random key 1 equal to. Now it's a little bit of math. You're kind of just selecting a really random key from this, but we're gonna do it based on the index of the array. So we're gonna say memes keys, and then in square brackets to select the specific index, we're actually gonna use math.floor, and then parentheses inside of that math.random parentheses times length. This is a beefy piece of code, or at least it's very long. The idea is that math.random returns a number or a decimal between 0 and 1, excluding 1. So let's say we have a length of 7. It will return 0 and it will multiply with 7 and we get 0, or in the best case or the highest case, it will return 0.99999 and will return 6.99999 when we multiply. The thing though is that the array, if it has 7 things, we want the highest index we can go to without stepping out of bounds is 1 minus the length. So we're gonna get those the decimal that it gives us, and we're gonna just floor it, which basically means we're gonna bring it all the way down to the number that's like below us, or just kind of truncate the decimals or remove them. And this will give us a random string or a random key that we can call it for the meme that we want. Then we can actually store this meme data in a variable. So I'll say chosen meme1 is equal to memes data, and then in square brackets random key 1. This will actually go inside of the data of that we had collected before and specify that we want to get everything for this specific meme ID. Then inside of that, we want to get the URL and the rating. So these are the 2 things we're going to need to update our website. The image, so that's just let URL equals to chosen meme1.url, and then the rating equals to chosen meme1.rating. All right. Then with the elements that we have on top that we have already referenced with document query selector, we're going to real quick say meme1 underscore image. Now the image is an image tag that we have, so we're going to specify the attribute source. The src for source is going to be equal to this new URL. And then the meme1 underscore rating it's actually a paragraph. So inside of that, we're going to change the text. So inner text equals 2. I like it to say not only the number, but also like a little string that says rating. So I'll say rating, colon space, the rating that we actually got from the data. And this will be very similar to meme 2, except we're going to do a check to make sure that if it's possible to not get the same 2 memes displaying on the screen. So to keep the things simple for the most part, you can just go over, copy everything we did for meme 1, paste it for meme 2. We're going to make a couple of changes. First, everywhere you see the number 1, we're going to change it to 2. So key 2, chosen meme 2, right here 2, 2, 2, 2. Now the second thing is that we don't want to redeclare these variables. We already declared URL and rating at the top, so we don't want to have to say let again. We just change the values because these variables can be changed this way. Yep. So we'll just change the URL and rating that we're going to put. Now, one problem with this is that we haven't made sure that there could be a chance that this actually contains the same key that we chose before, primarily since we have such a little amount of memes inside of our database. So to fix that, we're going to say right here when we're doing the math.floor, we're going to say while the random key 2 is equal to the random key 1, we're going to say that the random key 2 equals to memes, and then this whole line again, getting a whole new string. All right, now this is kind of a trick question. Does anybody know if this code is, I mean, okay, I'll say that this code is not exactly perfect right now. Does anyone have an idea why in the chat or in person? There's one edge case you kind of think of that could cause this code to break. Right, so that basically, if it's empty or if we only have one meme, this will constantly run in a loop, never actually find something unique. So to prevent that, we're going to just quickly say if the length that we had stored before is greater than 1, then we can actually go through and hope that and wait until we find a meme that's different. So this will prevent any problems with infinite loops or something like that. Cool. So now that we have all of this stored, we can actually test it real quick. So if you go back to our website, go to our page. Oh, you can see it's already showing. And I can see I made a mistake because it's showing the same meme right here. I forgot to change this key to 2. So just be very careful. So as you can see now, it always shows a different meme, no matter what. As long as we have more than 2 memes or 2 or more memes in the database, it will always show a different one. So we're partially there. Now, this becomes a little more, I would say it becomes a little more weird what we're going to do now. The idea is that we have the memes, we have the ability to upload them, but now we actually want to be able to click on them and change the rating. So let's say I prefer Shrek over this meme on the left. I would click on it and it would turn green and give it a new rating. And that Shrek will have a +1 rating now from now on in the database. So to do that, we could say that whenever we click the meme cards, the card is basically this whole square that holds the meme and the rating. It would increment the meme. But the thing is that we don't really know exactly what meme will be there because what judges the meme is the image. Well, we can't really tell a meme from the database just with the image. We got to know their ID. So to kind of bypass these limitations that we have, the cards or elements in JavaScript or in HTML really have an attribute called onClick. So if I open the source page basically real quick, I can right click over the whole card and add an attribute called onClick. It's going to run a piece of JavaScript. It could run a function, it could run just one line or whatever you like. So what we're going to do is that once we click on a card, it's going to have a function that we're going to have preset called increment meme that will store the ID and what card it was clicked on. So in this case, card number 1, which is the left one. So to prove that this actually work, I can just put like a simple JavaScript line like console.log clicked. And you will see now when we go to console and we click this, it says clicked as long as we click. So this is where things go. So how we're gonna do this is right here, continuing our code where we were changing the memes. We're gonna add attributes to the first card and the second card, which will store the function with the ID and the key and the card number of the meme. So we're gonna say meme1card dot set attribute. Now to specify the attribute, we'll say on click, comma, and then the value of this attribute what we will store. We're gonna call this function increment meme, and then we'll have an ID. So I can say meme ID and the card number 1. Because that's the meme1 card number 1. And then we can do the same for card number 2. Now this is not really perfect. As you can see, this will take this whole thing and interpret it as a string. So it will literally write down meme ID instead of any ID that we like. It will literally write down meme ID where the card is. And first of all, there's also no increment meme. So how we can actually specify the ID of the meme that we want is by using these variables that we already had stored on. So random key 2 and random key 1. These have the IDs that we're going to use for the meme displaying on the screen. So to put them inside of this string, JavaScript allows you to call them almost, you kind of think of like, I don't know, hopefully guys may, I don't know if everybody or most people have done C, but you can actually put like a %s and then it knows that whatever is after the string will be implemented as a string inside of it. So we'll kind of just say, we'll put a placeholder for the variable and then we'll put it into the string, whatever value is inside of the variable. So to do that, we're going to say $, squiggly brackets. And then inside of that, we're going to say random key 1. We'll do the same thing here for the random key 2. But to actually use the functionality of that, instead of using double quotes, JavaScript forces us to use on the top left of your keyboard, next to, on the left of 1, there's a tilde, and then there's like this little, I like to call it like a pointy quote or a single quote that you can click on, and it will allow us to still have a string. Wherever it sees a $sign and a squiggly bracket, it will treat that as a variable that we're gonna pass, that's gonna basically take the input from and put it into a string, or whatever value is inside of the variable. So to prove it to you guys that this actually works now, we can actually just run this and check. Oh, let me save this, of course. We can refresh this. And then every time we go to elements, you can see in our meme card, increment meme, it has also now this function right here, increment meme, that has this variable or this ID, but it has also the card number. Now the problem with that is that this is actually not a string. So although it's really, the whole thing is a string, it will take the value of random key 1 and then not put quotations around it. So it kind of treat it as a variable. So we gotta just kind of put on top, like around this double quotes or single quotes, since JavaScript allows both, to specify that this will be a string. So when we refresh, we can actually see that we have a function that calls a string with our key and the card number. Every time we refresh this again, it changes. So this is how we keep track of what meme has been clicked. Everybody following so far? Everybody good with the code? If you have any questions in the chat, let me know. Or if I go too fast or anything. So yeah, this is also recorded. So in case we go too fast or we miss something, it will be uploaded later on to the YouTube. And you will have the chance to just go through at your own pace or 2 times speed if you want to live dangerously. So that's how we go. So when we have all of this, we will actually go and actually create this function. So we have this function, but we never actually define what it does. So we'll actually go ahead and do this. So let's give it some space. I'll see you, bro. We're going to say const increment meme equals 2. And then in parentheses is going to be our parameters. So we're going to say meme ID, which is going to be the string that we're passing out the meme ID, and then the card number, which should just be an integer. And then we can actually do a little arrow and squigglies. Cool. So inside of this incrementing, we'll actually do two things. We're gonna first, we gotta get the data for the specific meme that we just called, or the specific meme that we clicked on. So to do that, we're gonna say db.ref. We're gonna reference inside of a database the meme section. So basically the meme section, you wanna call it like a folder, or I'll just say section and folder, both are the same, really. And then make sure, actually really make sure that you're gonna put this this / at the end. Really do that, because we're actually gonna we're gonna concatenate something to the string. So it's gonna add something to the string. So we don't want it to think that we're saying memes like memes ID, whatever, blah, 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 blah. No, we wanted to say memes / and then there's gonna be our ID right here, whatever we specify the ID is. Now to really specify the ID, there's multiple ways. You could just say, you could add it right here directly, adding the meme ID. Or JavaScript or Firebase has this function that's called .child. It looks at the section memes as a parent that holds the data that we're looking for, and we can specify a child or a child key, though what we exactly want to change. So right here, we want to change or get the data for whatever is in meme ID. So now that we have a reference to that section, we're actually going to get the data. So .get, and again, this will return a promise. So to make sure that when the promise is returned successful, we actually execute some code, and we'll say .then. This then returns data again, the snapshot of all the data inside of this meme. And then we can do a little pointy arrow, this squiggly bracket, and enter. All right. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll slow down or explain things again. Otherwise, we'll keep going. So when we have this snapshot returned to us, we'll again store that in a variable. So the meme data is going to be equal to snapshot.val. That's because the data returned to us is not really in the best format. So when we say .val, it gives it like, you could kind of think of it like, it puts things nicely for us to see and organizes it. Then under this, out of the whole data in the meme, so I can actually just print this real quick so we can prove that this is the meme data. When I print this and I click, when I click on the meme, now you see it prints out the data of the specific meme that we just got it from. This is the Shrek meme, it has the URL and the rating. So we specifically in the code, we want to get the rating. So we're going to say, let me new rating equals to meme data.rating. Real quick, let me print it out for you guys so we can double check that this is correct. Let's see if it actually works. So when I click here, I refresh the page, I have my memes, I click on a meme and it prints 0. So we printed the rating that's stored in the database. The thing though is that, as you can see, the rating is never updated. Although we're getting the rating from the database, we never really updated it. So to do that, we're actually gonna do it before we even get the rating. We're gonna update the rating, get the new rating, and then change it in our page. So JavaScript's a little, or not Java, Firebase is a little annoying with making things simple, I guess. So to actually update this, it will be a little long, like a very long line of code. It's the same thing that we copied here, kind of. So we're gonna say db.reference, so referencing the memes. We're gonna say .child, specify that we wanna get the specific data, we wanna reference the specific data for this meme with this ID. But part of this meme, what we really wanna get is its rating. So we're gonna we're gonna concatenate a string. So put next to a string, make sure you put the / at the beginning. And we're gonna call this rating. So this will specifically reference the rating field of this meme ID that's under the meme section. And then again, to actually set the data, so we want to actually increment it by 1. We're going to say .set. This is a new function of Firebase. It lets you just set things. Oh, hey. We have a class where.
Oh no, we're just hosting a workshop.
Okay, so we have a class with it.
At 7:30.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
We'll be done by then.
Yep. All right, so we'll have to speed up things a little bit. So when we set the data, we're actually gonna Firebase, the only way that lets us increment things is by saying Firebase.database.server value.increment 1. It's a very long function, but basically Firebase has a specific function that lets you, using the server value that we just referenced for rating, it will increment whatever is inside of it by 1. So now when I click on things, you see that the memes will actually start getting new ratings. So 1, 2, 3. When I refresh, if I start refreshing, you see how now it has 3? So it's really updating, but we got to update it in the page 2. So to do that, we're going to say, after we have all of our data here of the rating, we're going to check if the card clicked is equal to 1, we're going to say meme1 rating dot inner text is equal to rating plus the new rating. So this will just update the paragraph. And then after that, I like it to make it look good. So we're going to say that it will have it will change colors to green after we have clicked on a meme. So we know exactly what meme we clicked on. So we're going to send an attribute of style. So the style allows you to put CSS code inside of it. And we'll just set this equal to background color RGB 162 220 162. What's up?
Yeah, no worries.
You may have to move room, Ethan.
Oh no, just mostly a workshop for the Google mobile student program.
Oh, yeah, my bad. We ran late on time. So. All right, then we just copy and paste that for meme 2 so that in case we do click the meme on a card 2, it will change that. So that's all the code that we need for increment meme. Then real quick, scrolling back to after we have this attribute set, we want to say that whenever we click on a meme, actually we go back up, so sorry about that. When we click on a meme, after we're done changing its rating, we also want to make sure that they can't be clicked again. So we're going to say meme1 card.remove attribute. And we'll remove the attribute of on click so the memes can be spammed. Or meme 2. And then we'll just make sure to say, we'll just like say action title so that the user knows what to do now. We'll say that they gotta change or refresh the meme. So refresh the memes. Cool. And then last but not least, after we refresh all the memes here in this function, we can actually make sure that all the cards or all the content is nothing is green. Because we made it green right now when we click on it, but when we get a new meme, we don't want to actually keep it green. So we're going to say meme1 card content dot remove attribute style. And I apologize, guys, if this is going a little bit too fast. It's because we are running late on time. But please do check the recording on YouTube. It will go over everything. You can put it at your own speed and all. And then last but not least, we're going to change the title so the user knows to select a new meme. So action title dot inner text equals to choose the best meme. So this should be all for today. We kind of speed ran this last minute, but to really show that this website is up and running, when we refresh the memes and I click on Shrek, I messed up something. Card clicked is not defined. What? Card. Oh, because it's card clicks or card num. Card num is equal to 1. Sorry about that. When we refresh this page, you can see that when I click on Shrek, it turns to 2. But if I keep spamming this, it will not work for neither of these memes. Now I refresh this, click on this one. It doesn't work for neither of the memes anymore. And this is the website basically. You can upload the memes on your own as you go, and everything will be done. And that's it, guys. We'll see you all in the next workshop. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to fill out the form just real quick for the YouTube to see. Just make sure to fill out this QR form, and we'll see you guys later.
For sure. Y'all take care and have a good night.
Oh.